One more thing. There was a moment in Game 1 against the Timberwolves where Luka Doncic did something that made me realize this team can actually win a championship. I'll tell you what that is right now.
I'm here because I have to be.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
That's it. It's me versus the machines.
I'm tired as hell.
You can rest later. You're young.
I need to recover a bit.
Wait. One more thing.
Welcome. You're still locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and your best friend covering the Dallas Mavericks on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Luka Doncic did something that I referenced in the episode after the game, but I didn't get to it, and so, hence, one more thing. We'll talk about how the Dallas Mavericks can be a title contender because I think there are some factors really going in their favor right now, and it starts with this. There was a moment in this game where Luka Doncic, in second quarter, 8 minutes and 41 seconds left in the second quarter. So early in the game, very, very early in the game. Timberwolves had a decent lead at that point, and they were shooting the three ball really well. The Mavericks were getting some things going. They're scoring in the paint and all that, but it seemed like the Timberwolves was just going to be exactly the same script as Game 1 against the Clippers, same script Game 1 against the Thunder, where the Mavericks just get beat by by the three-point shot. And the Timberwolves started to send some extra defenders. And so Luka had to give the ball up to Lively. Lively gives the ball to Kyrie. Kyrie gives it back to Lively. Lively spins into the middle of the floor, kicks the ball out to P.J. Washington, and P.J. Washington just misses the pass. It's a little off center. It's a little off of – the pass is just a little off of where P.J. was standing, but P.J. could have definitely caught it. In the past, we've seen Luka Doncic in moments like this where he's kind of standing there, he's watching the play unfold, he's looking at his teammates, he's seeing what they're doing, and we've seen him get frustrated and what people say dress down his teammates. Now, there are times when he holds them to a standard too. There are times when he gets frustrated, of course, obviously. But this time, what I saw in Game 1, this random moment in the second quarter of this game against the Timberwolves that the Mavericks won, Luka Doncic looked over at Dereck Lively and just started clapping his hands at him in a way that encouraged Dereck Lively. That said, hey, that was the right move. That was the right play. When that happens, when they're sending extra defenders and Kyrie does the give and go with you, that's a great read. That's exactly what you need to do. And it's the leadership of Luka Doncic like that is really standing out to me in this series and in this playoffs in general. And I think it's kind of one of the ways that Kyrie Irving has rubbed off on him, that Luka is taking a step forward as a leader. Yes, he's growing. He's now been first-team All-NBA 5 times in 6 years. He's absolutely one of the best players in the NBA, if not the best player in the NBA right now. But it's the leadership that will take you from a really, really great player to a player that can win a title. And so now the question is, why does this mean that the Dallas Mavericks can win a title? I think it means because Luka is the best player left in the playoffs by a lot. It's Anthony Edwards, it's Jason Tatum, it's Tyrese Halliburton. Luka is on a different level than each of those players. He's on a different tier. He can pass on a different level than any of those others. He can create problems for defenses in a way that none of those others. He can solve more problems than all those others can. He can get hotter and has had bigger playoff moments. Maybe Jason Tatum has had a couple more. He's definitely had more opportunities to do that. But Luka is the best player left in this playoffs. And if Luka is going to start leading the way that we just saw in this Game 1, where, yes, there are times when he got frustrated with refs. There are times when he got frustrated with teammates. That happens to everybody. Go watch any Kobe Bryant game. Go watch any Michael Jordan game. It happens. It's the competitive force to want to win. There are moments when Luka looked lackadaisical at times. His effort wasn't there. There's some turnovers that happened in this game because Luka didn't go to the ball quick enough, or he didn't call his teammates up or whatever, and got frustrated with teammates not coming to the ball when he was getting pressured. But that moment in the second quarter really stood out to me about Luka's leadership, that he just said, Lively, yes, keep going. And what did Lively do the rest of the game? He was awesome. He was awesome. The Mavericks are going to need each of these role players to step up in big ways. They've had P.J. Washington. They've had Derrick Jones Jr. They've had Daniel Gafford. They've had Dereck Lively. They've had Jaden Hardy. They've had Tim Hardaway Jr. step up in some big moments in these playoffs already. And if that's happening for you, that's the recipe to be a title contender. Have all these guys step up in really big moments to give you something that you didn't think that they could give you, to take all the pressure that Luka and Kyrie are getting from all the different defenders and to be the release valve. We've seen P.J. Washington do that. We've seen Derrick Jones Jr. do it, and now we've seen some of the centers do that in this matchup against the Timberwolves, to take some of the pressure off of Luka and Kyrie they don't have to score every single time. Now they will, and you hope that they will. But now I'm looking at this team and I'm going, man, you've got the leadership of Luka and you've got the leadership of Kyrie Irving too. You've got the leadership of Kyrie. Derek Lively after the game was asked about, what do you see from Kyrie Irving in a game when he's just going off? Like, what do you see in a moment where all of a sudden he has 24 points in the first half? And Derek Lively said, he just said, wow, it's amazing to see Kyrie Irving go off like that, to see him do the things that he does. And watching Kyrie all season and some of last season, every single game, he does at least one or two things every game where I go, oh my gosh, I can't imagine doing that, playing basketball at all. If you've ever gone outside and dribbled a basketball, Kyrie will do one thing a game where you go, oh yeah, I'll never be able to do that. Never. I'll never be able to do that. Sometimes it's the alley-oop from Luka. Sometimes it's a crazy dribble move. Sometimes it's a finish at the rim. Sometimes it's a floater where you go, oh yeah, I could try that 100 times and I'd never get that down. But what Derek Lively said after that, after the wow of Kyrie Irving's play, he said, his voice is heard, whether he has a good game like this tonight in Game 1 against the Timberwolves or not. And I think that's something that really stands out to me about Kyrie, and is that he has all these guys' ear. They're all listening to him intently from the very beginning of the season. This was a Kyrie that at least we were sold, a Kyrie that has trouble with teammates, a Kyrie that had a hard time with James Harden, that Kevin Durant and him have beef now. That's what we were sold about Kyrie Irving. And he comes in, and for all the players on the Mavericks, he's been great with. There have been zero issues. There have been zero problems with any teammates. Kyrie's always been loved in the locker room, but you had some moments there with James Harden and Kevin Durant. Maybe even some moments with LeBron where he didn't want to play with him anymore, wanted to go be on his own team. And now Kyrie Irving is fitting in perfectly as the second star next to Luka, and he's being a leader of this team too. And I think that matters a lot to this team, and I think that matters a lot to the younger guys on this team to stay ready, to be able to step up and, hey, Jaden Hardy, we need you. Hey, Tim Hardaway Jr., we need you in this Game 1 against or Game 2 against the Thunder where he has 17 points. Hey, Daniel Gafford, we need you. Derek Jones Jr., we need you. And Kyrie and Luka are stepping up as leaders in a way that the Mavs didn't have a couple years ago. Last year when the Mavericks missed the playoffs, what's the thing that I kept harping on over and over and over again? The Mavs didn't have leaders on the court. They lost Brunson. They lost Dorian Finney-Smith in the trade. And they just all of a sudden didn't have any leaders. When Jason Kidd doesn't have leaders on the court, his teams fall apart. It's happened over and over again with Jason Kidd. Now, guess what Jason Kidd's got? He's got two leaders on the court. Luka stepping up in big ways. Kyrie Irving, his voice being heard whether he has a good game or not, and stepping up in ways that we haven't seen leaders on the Mavericks do before. And that's how you can win a title right there, is to have leaders like that, hold guys accountable, make the right decisions, keep guys engaged and keep guys invested, even if maybe they're not getting the ball. Maybe they make a bad decision. There was another moment in this game where Josh Green threw an awful turnover, like just a really bad one. It almost looked like me in pickup, throwing a turnover like that, just making a bad choice, really risking it, didn't need to, could have just stopped, slowed it down. He gets so mad at himself, he's walking down the other end of the court, he's throwing his hands in the air, he's getting frustrated, and Jaden Hardy comes up to him and pats him on the head like, let's go, next play, next possession. And where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that comes from with Jaden Hardy, who's in his second year, who hasn't played a lot this season, really hasn't been in the playoff rotation, but gets some minutes, and all of a sudden he's encouraging. It's the camaraderie. It's this team together now. It starts from the top, and it works its way down. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Mavericks are a title contender. And coming up, I'll tell you another reason why the Mavs are a title contender. Defense, togetherness, staying under control. Lots of other reasons why the Mavs are title contenders coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com, and you can get exactly what you want. As a small business owner, you wear a bunch of different hats. We know that you have to make a bunch of different decisions on a bunch of different things, inventory, pricing, all that kind of stuff, and customer relations, super important things. You don't want to have to spend all your other time having to hire. We recently had an HR manager come and talk to us about what's the most important thing about being in leadership or management, and the first thing she said was hiring. You know that that's super important. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to go find out exactly the people that you need to work for you. So go check out LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they still do apply. Thanks for checking out the One More Thing. This is Locked On Mavs. We have a daily podcast that covers the Locked On Mavs, that covers the Dallas Mavericks, not covers Locked On Mavs. That would be wild if we had a show that covered Locked On Mavs. It would be like the after shows the show after the show. Somebody talking about, well, Nick's point today was very terrible. This is the one more thing. We do a bonus show every day. The normal show will come 5 days a week, but during playoffs, we wanted to give you something extra. So thanks for supporting the show on YouTube, listening on podcasts. If you listen on podcasts, we really appreciate each and every one of you for listening every day. Take us with you wherever you go. All right, Isaac, let's get into a couple more reasons why the Mavs are title contenders now. Their defense. Their defense is stepping up in a big way, and their defense makes it tough for all different types of players. We've seen SGA struggle in ways against the Thunder we haven't really seen a lot. Now, he got 30 every night. He hit a bunch of tough mid-range jumpers, but he had to hit a bunch of tough mid-range jumpers. We've seen James Harden and Paul George. We've seen these guys struggle. We've seen guys struggle against the Mavericks all throughout the end of the season. And now who's left? It's the Mavericks, the Timberwolves now, which the Mavericks have beaten Game 1. It's a great start in showing that they can beat this team. The Pacers on the other side. The Mavs have had a hard time with the Pacers. I will say that. The Pacers team is a little different than when the Mavs faced them, but that could be an interesting series if it ended up there. And then it's the Celtics. And the Celtics without Porzingis don't look as completely insanely intimidating as they did before. And can the Mavericks make it tough on Jason Tatum? Can they make him just take a bunch of mid-range shots? Sure, I think this defense can do that against them. I don't think there's anything offensively unless they hit a million threes, which they are definitely capable of. But the Mavs have shown that they can run teams off the three-point line. They did it with the Clippers. They did it with the Thunder. They've run teams off the three-point line before, and if you run the Celtics team off the three-point line, what'll happen? And so now you start going, man, this Mavs team matches up kind of well with all the rest of these teams here. That's a title contender. And it's starting to really sink in that this team could win a title. They've got to take care of the Timberwolves first, absolutely. But I went back. There was an episode March 28th, 2024. So 2 months ago, basically, right? 2 months ago, before the Mavs beat the Kings in those two games that were absolutely massive in the standings, if you remember. I had an episode where I said, are the Mavs title contenders? They had the trades. They had made the trades already. They had played with those guys for about a little over a month or maybe 5 or 6 weeks or so. And their defense was starting to really stand out. And they really had it started to put all together. I think I came to the conclusion that I think they're one scorer away. But now, if the Mavs play the defense that they're playing right now, that one scorer can just be an opportunist. P.J. Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, an opportunist. Tim Hardaway Jr. was in one game against the Thunder. An opportunist scorer. And I think that that's so fascinating that this team could get there and could win a title. And now it's actually really sinking in that this team could do that. And I think that that's something that we need to put a flag in the sand, put remember the moment, take an internal moment snapshot. You remember the episode of The Office where Jim and Pam are going to have their wedding in Niagara Falls, and they're like, oh, my aunt told me that you should take these mental pictures. And so they take these fake pictures with, a fake camera in their mind just to remember some of these moments. Take that snapshot right now. As a Mavs fan, think about this moment right now. The Dallas Mavericks in 2024 can win an NBA title. Luka could win his first NBA title. Kyrie could win another title and one without LeBron. Jason Kidd could win a title as an NBA head coach, and I believe that. I fully do believe that can happen. That's wild, and I wanted to mark this moment because I think that it's a really big moment for the Mavericks. I think it's a big moment for this franchise. Their defense is there. Their defense is ready. They've got it all working, and you got to give Luka and Kyrie credit for the defensive end as well. Luka, the lob at the end of the game that was going to go to Rudy Gobert would have tied the game, and Luka swats that lob out of the air, and the Mavs go on the other end, and they take a 4-point lead. A huge, huge swing at the end of this game. And Luka's defense has stepped up in a huge way, stepped up in a moment where you maybe didn't expect Luka to be this good defensively. And there have been times this playoffs where he hasn't looked good at all. And maybe it's because of the knee, and maybe it's because of effort, and maybe it's because of a bunch of other things. But Luka stepping up defensively, taking on matchups. There was another moment, I think it was in the fourth quarter, where Luka just steps in front of Mike Conley, and Mike Conley's trying to drive by him, trying to create some advantage, trying to get to the rim, trying to drive. And Luka just stonewalls him over and over again, where he just stands his ground on defense. Mike Conley runs into him, and this would have been a moment. I think about this now that I've been to a bunch of away playoff games now. It's very jarring if you've never been to an away game covering your favorite team or covering the team that you love the Mavericks, where there's a moment where you go, man, the AAC would have gone nuts on that play. Man, got a huge dunk from Gafford, and it's just silent in the building. It is a jarring feeling. It is very weird to hear that, and to just hear the absence of what should be incredible noise, incredible fanfare, incredible excitement about a play. And that was one of those plays where I'm like, man, the AAC would have gotten hyped for that moment where Luka just stonewalls Mike Conley over and over and over again. It was like 3 times on the same play where he just didn't let him by him. And Luka taking care of his matchup like that is absolutely huge. Kyrie Irving defending the way that he can, switching on to different guys. There's a moment where he got a block in the paint. It was either against Cat or Gobert, where Rashad Miller took a picture of it and showed it to me. He's like, look at Kyrie's feet. They're like a foot in the air. He was flying on that play. These two guys have locked in on defense, and we've said it over and over again, but they deserve a lot of credit. Yes, having 2 centers, having 48 minutes of centers that are 7 foot tall and can rebound and can finish plays and all that is massive. Huge. Great for the Mavericks. Yes, having 2 wings that resemble what the Bang Bros, Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock did before is massive. That's a huge thing for the Mavericks too. It allows them to defend a bunch of different ways. But having their 2 stars who are not known as defenders, Luka was known as a negative defender, was known as a terrible defender, non-effort, all that stuff. Kyrie, too small, 6'2", can't defend all these. These 2 guys have stepped up in huge ways, and I think that it's notable for this team to have their 2 leaders step up on defense in a huge way and be the catalyst, I guess, of this defense. Because if they weren't working the way that they are right now on defense, the 2 stars, Luka and Kyrie, the defense would look like it looked like last year. If there's one bad bunch on the floor, there's one bad player on the floor playing defense, like not holding up their own, the defense falls apart quickly. And we've seen it with a bunch of different iterations of this Mavs team. Think about all the different versions of this Mavs team that you've seen not be able to defend in big moments or in random mundane moments at all. It's because one of the 5 players on the floor was lost, didn't know what they were doing, didn't put the effort in, something. If they're all locked in like they are right now, they can play championship-level defense. It makes this Mavs team a championship-level team. And I think that that's pretty cool. And I think that it should be remembered. I think it's something that we should look back on. I think it's something that we should think about in this moment and remember, man, we're watching a Mavs team, and don't take it for granted. We're watching a Mavs team that can win a title right now because maybe 4 months ago, you didn't think that the Mavs could win a title. 4 months ago, before the trades happened, did you think this Mavs team could win a title? All of a sudden, Denver's out of the way. Phoenix is out of the way. You've got the Bucks out of the way. You've got the Heat out of the way. You've got a bunch of other teams out of the way. It's the Mavs versus the matchup in front of them. They still have to take care of business with the Timberwolves. They've still got to win more games. It's going to be a tough series. They are not guaranteed to win 3 more in this series. They can, and they can. And that's the thing. They can win games against this Timberwolves team. They can go, and I think they can go and win against the Celtics or against the Pacers, whoever it is. This Mavs team is different. They're stepping up in big ways, and they stay under control. The Mavs did not have a lead for the majority of this game in Game 1 against the Timberwolves. They stayed in control. They stayed calm, and they stayed, they didn't let the pressure get to them on the road at all, and they won this Game 1. It's massive. Doesn't mean the Mavericks will win the title, but I think it's important to remember that they can right now and to realize that they absolutely can win a title right now. And that's the one more thing. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, the one more thing. Appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow night with the actual show and all that. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.